during the New Deal, as laws were finally passed to establish some bedrock labour protections, farm workers were repeatedly and specifically excluded from them. So, for instance, the 1935 law, which protected employees' rights to join unions, explicitly stated that the term employee shall not include any individual employed as an agricultural labourer. And the 1938 law, which created a federal minimum wage and overtime, again, carved out an exception, so those provisions shall not apply to anyone employed in agriculture, which is...
That's really interesting. It's almost like all of these fucking laws, including immigration, which is, of course, tied to exactly this industry specifically. You can put, poultry in there as well, obviously. I guess it's technically part of big agriculture. Is designed with the express purpose of ensuring that there is a permanent underclass. What is this? These guys are not a burden on the system. They are literally, without them, there is no system. American agricultural production falls apart without a steady flow of undocumented immigrants. The restaurant industry, low-key, kind of fell apart during COVID when they had such strict lockdown measures in place. Half of the background staff that you never see, not the server staff, but like busboys and shit in every restaurant is undocumented. Yeah, construction, food processing, poultry, all manner of agricultural production, and even on the service side. So many of this industry is literally fucking backed by undocumented labor that are getting paid nothing and under horrifying, gruesome workplace conditions. On top of that, they also pay taxes. So they are literally not a burden, but a benefit to the system. These stupid idiots can't comprehend that, though. And the real way to solve this problem of depressive wages isn't by stopping the inflow of immigration, which they don't. If you want to, as workers, make sure that you have better wages and better workplace conditions, document the undocumented laborers, and allow all workers across the board, regardless of ethnic background, creed, nationality, to organize in their workplace and demand higher percentages of the profits that they're generating for people who will never touch the factory assembly line or never see how agricultural production occurs. That is how you legitimately improve wages and workplace conditions. And yet, for some reason, people don't see it like that. They see it as a pie that is where the slice that they are able to get is getting smaller and smaller. And then they see immigrants coming in and taking up even, what remains of the crumbs of that pie. Talking like them being undocumented is the requirement and recipe for success. I'm not interested in hearing about someone's opinion on immigration when they haven't been affected by it or interacted with it in any way. Wait, this guy... There's no way this guy is saying that, like... Wait, what? How have you been affected by immigration, you pretentious little freak? Answer me. In fact, this dude... Wait, no, he literally said, in fact, this dude is the beneficiary of mass immigration to the United States. No shit, he wouldn't have a problem with it. Wait, he literally owned himself. He, recognized... I think people probably were like, dude, what are you talking about? He's he's an anchor baby. He's the first generation. And so he was like, yeah, he's been impacted by it. Nice. This is the stupidest take I've ever heard. Why are there laws then? If you lighten the law, sure, but not ignore them. The fuck? Oh, God. That's awesome. Anyway, I'm glad that John Oliver is covering the legal part of this because the legal part of this was written with the express purpose of churning out these exact same results.
The child labor law in the U.S. is pretty good, except when it comes to agriculture. And then it has a big gaping hole. U.S. law allows children to work in agriculture at far younger ages for unlimited hours outside of school in much more dangerous conditions than any other sector. So a child can work perfectly legally for any farmer at age 12. That child couldn't work serving the food, that he can work 10, 12, 14 hours picking.
Even when labour laws do apply to agricultural workers, there is almost no way to enforce them. Take California, the most productive agricultural state in the nation. The agency responsible for monitoring workplace safety there is so understaffed that it currently has roughly one field inspector available for every 90,000 workers, with only a handful of those inspectors speaking any language other than English. And even when there are consequences, they can be laughable. After 2 farm workers in Idaho drowned in pits of cow manure at dairy operations, OSHA imposed fines of just $5,000 for each of the men's deaths, which is nothing. If an employee drowns in the universally agreed upon worst thing to drown in, that should cost their employer a lot more than a fifth of a Hyundai Sonata.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the actual reason why I always say the federal government doesn't just necessarily turn a blind eye to these atrocities, but it's completely allowed it to happen, okay? When it is significantly more cost effective to continue hiring undocumented laborers and have awful workplace conditions for them, and then get caught, okay? And then get caught and only pay like a small fine than the other way around. Of course they're going to do that. The entire point, even from a pro-capitalist, like, oh, let's say you don't want to fucking eviscerate capitalism. Let's say that you think the government at least should be a regulatory force on commerce, though, on businesses. If you see that, if you recognize that, then you should absolutely recognize that the punishment should be significantly more severe. Because if the punishment is not as severe, these businesses operate on profits and losses. If they consider it to be significantly less of a risk to just keep doing whatever the fuck they're doing and kill these migrant laborers and then only pay like a tiny fucking minuscule fine on the tippy top, then they're going to keep doing that. And the government that doesn't increase these increase the regulations and increase the fines is certainly allowing them to do so. Okay? That's how this shit works. Here's a banger Adam Johnson post about something similar to this, what I've talked about. A Comfort Inn owner in Tennessee has been caught by the Department of Labor employing 2 kids under age of 12. The owner also failed to pay other workers minimum wage, failed to pay overtime, and will be forced to pay back wages. For the child labor, he's being fined $21,658. Not so fun fact. The maximum penalty for a child labor violation, which is, say, illegally employing children, is a fine of $15,000 per child with no prison time. The maximum penalty for pirating a film is up to $250,000 and 3 years in prison. Understand that this is what I mean when I say the government knows that this is happening and they don't care. They actually want it to happen. That's the reason why they give you like a nice little, oh yeah, oops, you got caught. Be better next time in hiding this shit. This is not an exception. It is the fucking rule. They write these laws specifically so that they are cost effective for the businesses. Every rugged individualist capitalist, unless they like directly own a fucking business and want to farm like child slave labor, okay, is going to look at that and go, the government is supposed to, create regulation to stop this from happening. Yes, that's true. Like, for example, let's say you're a racist person. Let's say that you're a racist person who thinks there shouldn't be migrant labor in this country. Let's say that you're angry about it and you're like, oh man, I should go vote for a Republican Party member that says, I don't know, let's build a fucking wall. The wall is not the issue here. The wall is not going to stop undocumented laborers from coming in. The actual way to genuinely stop undocumented labor, if you wanted to do so, is by punishing businesses who regularly hire the undocumented laborers. Except all of these Republican business owners know full well that that's not going to happen. So, of course, they can continue fucking voting for the guys who claim that they're going to, stop undocumented immigrants from coming into the country. The wall is just a dumbass non-solution. The real solution in that circumstance, from a right-wing perspective, would be to literally throw the book at businesses to ensure that their bottom lines are fucking hurt if they hire undocumented labor. Okay? But that's not the reason why these laws were designed. All matter of immigration law, including these kinds of labor regulations, were written with the express purpose of not hurting the bottom line. It's never going to be more expensive to hire undocumented labor and get punished than it is to just hire undocumented labor instead of documented labor. That's how it fucking works. Stop you giving them ideas. I can comfortably say this over and over again because this country is operated on the principles of capitalism, not Nazism. Fascism can only be a means of control to ensure that capitalism continues. But the main reason is still and always will be capitalism. They only utilize fascism and this doesn't mean that there aren't like white supremacists out there ideologically, white supremacists that are ideologically aligned with the expulsion and maybe even evisceration, mass incarceration of black and brown people. Of course there are. There are plenty of racist people in this country. They're a victim of their social conditioning. They're a product of their social conditioning, and they're fucking pieces of shit. However, having said that, businesses, and this country is designed around businesses, is absolutely designed for capitalism. It's never real fascism. The fascism happens on a daily basis as a means of control, as a way to sedate the right wing, to say, hey, we're doing the things that you want us to do, I promise you. But ultimately, all they care about is preserving the bottom line of corporations. Okay? Trust me, at Ali on Twitter, rumoring they're exposing a crime. Go on Ali's Twitter concerning MTG is about to pop off. Great. We'll take a look at it when it pops off. Now remember. I know the fucking steel man for like, why we can't have undocumented migrants coming in and depressing wages, blah, blah, blah. Like, I know all these arguments. I know them better than the right-wing fucking dickheads do. Okay? The real solution is not to stop migrant laborers from coming into the country and working inside of our borders. The real solution is to allow them to become documented laborers and allow them to become unionized. Okay? That's it. That's fucking it. That is why we are all united on class boundaries, not necessarily on what country that we're coming from, not necessarily on what our ethnic backgrounds are, what we believe, what language we speak, but instead by our relation to the means of production. Okay? That's it. This is exactly why John Oliver sucks. His framing of the story is that this is a specific issue of farm workers that doesn't identify, that it paints the illusion that the issue is specific industries, not systemic. I don't even agree with that. I think he's very clearly saying that the law is designed right here. He's very clearly saying that the law is expressly designed to not hurt the bottom line of corporations. And farm workers are one very hidden, but one of the worst, most exploitative aspects of unregulated capitalism in this country. And yes, before you fucking come at me with some Cesar Chavez quotes, I do not care. Okay? I don't care. What I'm saying is correct, regardless of what Cesar Chavez believed. Okay? Oh, they would go and fucking, you're a fucking monkey, he says. That's nice. Weird. Does that make your mom someone who's interested in bestiality? Because I fucked her. I gorilla fucked her last night, so I don't know what. This kind of says a lot more about you, dumbass. By the way, remember collectively the entirety of Western media fucking losing their shit about the situation in Qatar when you know, understandably there was some light that was shined on the slavery practices there, with respect to building the stadium and whatnot. You know, that is true. And I, of course, criticized Qatar at the time as well, and have many, many times over. The difference, of course, for me is that I also criticize these conditions, whereas Western media broadly ignores these conditions and does their very best to oftentimes even cover it up.
In 2021, the DOJ launched a massive indictment involving the treatment of H-2A workers on Georgia farms, and the details are appalling.
Prosecutors calling it modern-day slavery in the fields of southern Georgia. Years worth of damning, horrific allegations. Victims allegedly forced to live in cramped, dirty trailers with raw sewage leaking into the trailers, threatened them with deportation, and detained them in a work camp surrounded by an electric fence. And in 2018, 30 individuals allegedly sold to another man in Indiana for $21,481.
For the record, I just want to point something out here. The only crime here, are you ready for this? The only crime here is that this wasn't done through legal channels. because this is done through legal channels regularly. If you're flabbergasted about this, understand that if it was kept within the state and also conducted by a state-sanctioned private facility, a state-sanctioned private prison, it would be perfectly legal. Guys,
teenager.
It's called convict leasing. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this process, it is literally called convict leasing. Okay? Because the 13th Amendment allows slavery as a form of punishment in this country, the legal version of slavery that is legal still anyway is called convict leasing. Okay? They do it. They do it all the time.